The Star Wars sequel trilogy has been one of the most debated topics in the Star Wars fandom, whether or not the fans actually approve of the way that Disney decided to take the sequel trilogy. Another thing that's been prevalent is George Lucas's sequel trilogy and the vision that he had for the 7, 8, and 9, and how it ultimately differed significantly from what Disney decided. So today we'll be talking about what George Lucas had envisioned on a certain aspect of his own sequel trilogy. We'll of course be talking about the main villains in Darth Maul and Darth Talon. This comes from the Star Wars Archives book, which explains a lot of the behind the scenes information about George Lucas's Star Wars films, as well as talks about his ideas and concepts for the sequel trilogy. One thing has been very clear about the sequel trilogy for George Lucas, that being that it's undergone extensive changes over the years, but this appears to be the last iteration that George Lucas settled on. Yesterday we talked about the fact that it was George Lucas's idea to have Palpatine be Anakin's father, and to have Palpatine be responsible for the birth of the Chosen One, and ultimately the destruction of his Sith Order. We've also heard rumors that George Lucas originally planned to bring Palpatine back as well. According to the Star Wars Archives novel, however, this was not the case, and there was going to be a different villain than Palpatine in 7, 8, and 9. Still though, a villain that we had seen before. In the Star Wars Archives novel, it's revealed that Darth Maul was again going to be the main antagonist of this sequel trilogy, and that in large part, George Lucas wanted to bring Maul back in the Clone Wars to set this up, as he wanted it to be explained already how Darth Maul returned after his defeat at the hands of a Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Phantom Menace. Therefore, it was George's idea to bring Maul back in the Clone Wars series, to do a lot of the heavy lifting of the sequel trilogy's story beforehand, so that fans wouldn't be immediately caught off guard when Maul appeared as the villain in Episode 7. George Lucas explained that Maul was going to take over the Star Wars underworld, again something that we saw in the Clone Wars series, and that over the time of the Empire, Maul was going to grow as a crime lord, becoming sort of a hybridization of a Sith Lord and a crime boss. A Darth Vader meets a Jabba the Hutt. It was actually going to be the destruction of the Empire that would cause Maul to grow in power substantially, as all of the remnants of the Empire that remained after they were destroyed by the rebellion would flee to Maul, joining this sort of underworld organization, and creating a whole new enemy for the brand new Republic, with the remnants of the Empire as well as the crime syndicate that Maul had been constructing over the time of the Empire's reign. George Lucas also went on to explain that Maul would have taken a new apprentice in the form of Darth Talon, a character that was created in Legends continuity set around 100 years after Luke Skywalker. It's clear though that George Lucas was going to take Darth Talon and move her to a more early time period in the Star Wars timeline, pairing up Talon and Maul together. Not a lot is known about the origins of Talon though. All we know is that she's been described as the sequel trilogy's Darth Vader, and would do a lot of the heavy lifting for Maul. With that said, George Lucas also had two different iterations of Maul in mind. One where he was far more like the Emperor, more decrepit and old, and even had his spider legs back from the Clone Wars, slowly losing his sanity in his mind. And the other version is described more like a superhero, where Maul would be described as even bulkier than he was in the Clone Wars and the Phantom Menace, being a large legitimate threat to new Jedi, although it's unclear what version George Lucas ultimately decided on. As far as official quotes concerning Maul in the sequel trilogy, this is what George has had to say. There's a power vacuum, so gangsters like the Hutts are taking advantage of the situation and the chaos in the galaxy. The key person is Darth Maul, who has been resurrected in the Clone Wars cartoons. He brings all of the gangs together. Darth Maul is very old, and we have two versions of him. One is set of his cybernetic legs like a spider, and then later he has metal legs, and he is a little bit bigger, more of a superhero. It starts out a few years after Return of the Jedi, and we establish pretty quickly that there's this underworld. There are these offshoot stormtroopers who started their own planets, and that Luke is trying to restart the Jedi. The stormtroopers, though, refuse to give up when the Republic wins. Also according to this, George Lucas would have had the sequel trilogy span over several decades, meaning that he would have de-aged Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill for Episode 7, as well as laid the groundwork for a new Jedi Order, as well as for Maul to rise in power. Anyway guys, that's pretty much all we know about the villains of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, again with Darth Maul and Darth Talon being the most prominent figures, with Maul's return established in the Clone Wars to be set setup for the sequel trilogy. Of course though, after Disney took over, they would have Maul killed in Star Wars Rebels. Anyway, my friends, what are your guys' thoughts on this? And how would you feel about Maul being the main villain of the sequel trilogy? Do you like what we ultimately got, or would you have liked to see this? If you guys would like to see more videos detailing George Lucas's sequel trilogy, please like this video, as that will indicate that you guys want to see more. As always, my friends, may the Force be with you, and have a great day.